This one should be good. I've been asked to release my K1200LT Rant video. And I'm going to clean it up a little bit. No, I'm not going to cut out the language and stuff because, that all came from the heart at the time that was filmed. And that was back in the day. So I'm going to leave that alone. Here we go.
Hi, before I get into this rant, let me give you a little bit of history. I began riding BMW motorcycles in 1991.
This is where I tell my viewers my first BMW was a 1990 K1, and I put 53,000 miles on it in the first year. It was then replaced by a 1992 K100 RS that saw 47,000 miles in 11 months. Between the two, I earned my 100,000 mile award from BMW in 2 years of BMW ownership. I mention here, I am not insulting anyone who owns one of these bikes. That is not my intention. For those of you who enjoy working on this model, please have at it. There's plenty out there to work on, and it's not something I'm interested in working on anymore. As I explained in this video, I stopped working on the K1200LT because I was too busy with other models. These bikes are a big ass ache to have completely disassembled in your tiny little shop. And yes, my friend Kirk that works on these bikes exclusively out there in Illinois, he has a shop tinier than my old shop, and he works on K12LTs all the time. But he's not turning over the volume of motorcycles that I used to turn over, nor is he working on the variety of BMW models that I used to service, nor is he working on other brands. We must remember, not only was I servicing BMWs at this time, I was also a Ural service dealer. I was busy. Plus my regular customers with Japanese bikes and such, and other brands. So, life was hectic, and there wasn't time to be diving into unnecessarily complex projects. And that was part of my rant about this. Busy shop, one guy in the shop, you're overwhelmed with work, you don't know if you're going to make it to the end of the week and be able to get groceries or not, because, is that bike going to get done? Are you going to get paid? Or are you going to run into another problem that delays the bike another week or longer, depending if it needs parts? The longer a bike sits on a lift waiting for parts, the more money it's costing the technician, the owner of the business. That lift is dead. That space is dead. And when it consumes your entire shop, you're out of business until those parts arrive and you could put one of these bikes back together and get it out of your shop. I couldn't be put in that position anymore. It happened too many times already, so I had given up with these. But the gentleman that owned this bike had an incredible story that really touched my heart, so I offered to take the bike in as long as I could pick on it in a video, and he wouldn't take offense about it. So he agreed to that. We had more chats, and the bike arrived, and here we go. And here's how I cut up the K12LT.
We got to San Antonio and listened to the bullshit orating of BMW specialists and frickin' corporate pinheads, and finally got to ride these. Our test route was from San Antonio out around New Braunfels area, a little bit into the Texas Hill Country, 120-mile loop. I almost ran out of fuel on this test loop. That's how freaking thirsty these bikes are. Now granted, we're running at full speed, 100 miles per hour plus. We did have 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts that day, but a pretty steady wind of 20-25 miles per hour. It was clear, it wasn't rainy or anything, but it was pretty shocking, A, to find out how tiny the fuel tank was, and B, how much of a pig these things were as far as fuel economy goes. But that didn't deter us from enjoying the bike, although it had a few little odd quirks. As these bikes began to show up on the showroom floors and customers started buying them, off the top of my head, I don't recall more than 1 or 2 people buying these while I was employed at the dealership, and I left. The hell did I leave? May of 2000. I don't recall more than a couple people making it away on these without falling over. We had numerous complaints of fairing rattles, shifters breaking off, the ball ends were too damn small, lots of issues of that nature. As years went by and I'm on my own, I finally came to the point where I stopped working on these bikes. They were just too problematic, and for a one-man shop, these bikes, to tear these bikes down like we're doing today to replace the clutch and the rear main seal, it's going to consume my entire shop. Point out a few things on these that were just mind-boggling to those of us who rode K-bikes. These saddlebags are tiny. If you own one, you know that. The top case, while it was adjustable 2 inches to the back from this position, you had to open it up, unbolt it, move it back. It really should have been on a quick release system. The radio was at best adequate. It was obsolete pretty quickly. When these came out, it was offered to have a CB installed right at the dealer. Trouble was there were no fucking CB antennas. People waited a year and a half before BMW North America finally realized that BMW AG in Germany was never, ever, ever going to have a CB antenna. Why, you ask? Would BMW AG not supply a CB antenna? There's no fucking CBs in Europe. So BMW North America finally pulled their head out of their ass, contracted with J&M, company that makes headsets in Arizona, and came out with a CB antenna. The mount already existed from BMW AG, they just had no antenna. And I'd like to point out that this stupid AM/FM mast without this cover or anything is like $60 frickin' dollars. Crazy money. Moving on to the next item. For the first time ever on a BMW model, they slung the caliper underneath. Why did they put it there? Oh, you'd think because it's easier to change the pads if the caliper's here than it is up there. If that's what you're thinking, you'd be horribly wrong. The reason they moved it down to here was because on the prototype test bike, it was mounted up top like every other K-bike, like every other paralever equipped bike. The fucking saddlebags caught on fire. They had to move them down here to get the airflow. Now, the problem with this is that BMW's rotor carriers suck. This disc is worn, the carriers are worn out, so it floats up and down. I had one bike in here with 50-something thousand miles on it that the fucking disc was soaring into the caliper. Another 5,000 miles, it would have been puking brake fluid everywhere. Now you ask, how can you ride and not notice that? When the dealer keeps telling you that the rattling, clunking bullshit is normal, you assume it's normal and you keep riding, even if the noise gets worse. These are overly noisy anyway, even when the carrier is good, because sand and grit gets packed in here and it just grinds and grinds and grinds, scores up the brake disc. Kind of a shitty design if you ask me. These bikes are fucking heavy. I don't mean just heavy. They are fucking incredibly heavy. 900 pounds heavy by the time the average person has it on the road. And for the first time BMW had a gross vehicle weight rating that was not double what the weight of the bike was. All your old Airheads, the bike weighed 400 pounds, it had an 800-pound GVW, not these. These weighed 900 pounds, they have a 1,300-pound GVW. So a mere 400 pounds, that's not a lot of weight. Pack on one of me and some skinny little 18-year-old chickie and you're at maximum capacity with no freaking luggage. BMW was kind enough to add an electric reverse which runs off the starter button. So you could engage reverse, mash the starter button down, and slowly but surely the rear wheel would turn. Unless you had an obstacle to go over, like a 2x4 laying on the ground or anything substantial like that, then the starter usually just kicks out and it won't back up any further. You'll notice this giant canister of a muffler. It's like you didn't notice the outlet on this. The outlet is actually here. For some reason, the fucktards thought it would look cool to have this extension sticking out the back, but they didn't want the saddlebag to get dirty, so they dumped a frickin' 90-degree elbow inside of it so that it exits out the bottom. Foolish? Yeah. Armrests were not available. We were told at the intro BMW would not be making armrests, that, quote, we are leaving that to the aftermarket to supply. Why you would build a bike like this and not supply armrests is as goofy as BMW cars not having fucking cup holders in them until the 80s. Crazy. During the intro, the corporate pinheads at BMW were so full of themselves and so giggly and all excited about their new Wundertour. They made the claim that it would take Honda over a year to catch up and come out with anything even remotely close to this bike. They were wrong. 3 months later, the GL 1800 was released. More horsepower, better handling, better paint, because the paint on these was not that great. This is a 2005. It actually has better paint. The 99 paint, kind of rough and orange peely like most BMW paint. I'll also add that while this is based on this is basically a K1200RS engine, they fucking neutered it to 100 horsepower instead of 130. The weighted flywheel, I understand. The huge reduction in power made no sense to me. Later on, they bumped the horsepower back up because 100 horsepower was just not adequate on a freaking 1,000-pound machine with another 300-400 pounds of cargo. I thought it was done. I'm not done. To continue with the goofiness, this is the fuel filler. This was, well, I'll give them credit. It was designed to, the fuel tank was designed to be filled on the side stand. Good for them. The last thing you want when you're tired and you're traveling and you're doing a 1,000-mile day is to have to fuck around putting a 900-plus pound pig on a center stand by hand. But they covered that, remedied that problem by later on adding what many people found to be a great feature. I'm sure that saved many people from getting a hernia. One big problem with all of this is it takes an incredible amount of time to remove all of these panels just to do routine service. BMWs that were always supposed to be easy to work on were no longer easy to work on. The K1200RS was kind of a pain in the ass compared to the rest of the bikes. This one brought it to a whole new ugly level. In order to replace or inspect your air filter, all of this stuff has to come off to remove the fuel tank, because they buried the air box under the fuel tank. It's no longer under the seat like an oil head. It's not easy to access from the right side like an older K bike. It used to be here. Long gone. Now the tank has to come off. As you'll see, if you have one of these apart, it's quite a bit of work to do routine service on this. Engine oil and filter are still easy to change. Rear drive fluid is easy to change, which is good, because these bikes were so heavy and BMW stopped shimming these rear drives properly. These got a very rapid bad reputation for failing rear drive units. If you've seen my other videos, you know I've explained it. It's not an issue of a poor design. The paralever rear drive works great. There's no problems with it. It's all in the assembly. If you don't shim them properly, and BMW doesn't shim them properly, and the freaking tools that BMW sells are not correct either, they fail. Rebuilt properly, they do not fail. So you ask, how do you check the oil on these? Well, these came with a handy-dandy little flashlight. Why did they come with a little flashlight? Because you can't see the fucking oil sight window without it. Let me get my real flashlight. So your oil sight window on the K-bike is way down there. As we see, the level is just below the dot in the center. Kind of hard to see without a light. The filler cap is here. Here, where you got 10 freaking inches away to get to it. So how the hell do you put oil in it? BMW covered that too. They gave you these. I'm sure they spared no expense in these either. They gave you these special paper funnels. I think they gave you 5. So that you could unscrew the cap, stick this paper piece of shit in here, and spend half the afternoon pouring oil in it. What they should have done was they should have added a fucking umbrella holder here so you could have a little sun umbrella over your head while you're adding oil to your fucking bike at each fuel stop. Assholes. Then we had the issue of nobody really made a tire that was adequate for these bikes. These things were chewing through a set of tires in 5,000 miles. Metzler finally stepped up, as I believe Dunlop did and back then, and came up with a tire that would actually last 8,000 or 9,000 miles. But nonetheless, they are very expensive. Right now, 2013 prices, that rear tire retails for over $300. The front is over $200. Sean brought up a good point. With a bike that weighs 900 pounds, it should come with central vac. Keep your top box clean. I'd like to point out how there isn't much room in these top cases. While creative people could get a couple of helmets in here, it's not always the case. Point out some of the another oddity with these. In order to get under the seat to where your battery is located, you had to open the saddlebag, pull this knob, and you better hope you have two hands now. Lift the front seat, lift the backrest. Or just the seat itself. There you go. Now, you could access that puny shit 20 amp hour battery. You didn't see these 20 amp hour batteries until 94 with the K1200LT. I think the 93 still had a 30 amp hour battery. Nonetheless, tiny little battery with all this extra shit on here, your AM FM radio, 6-disc CD changer, intercom system was available, plus the CB once you could get the antenna. It's a lot of extra drawer on this. Now, you'll also see this little preload adjuster for the rear shock, which, as far as I'm concerned, this bike was severely undersprung and improperly damped as well. But the battery is just a comedy show, and the computer software was wrong on some of these, so you had a constant battery draw. That resulted in people keeping these living on battery chargers because even the tender could not keep the battery. So that's the end of my rant. I'm sure there's more, but that's all there is in my pea of a brain right now. As I stated in the beginning, I am not attacking you, the K12LT owner, or anyone who owns a K1200LT. This rant is merely venting my frustrations at BMW for a bike that they spent at least 6 years of R&D and testing, and they came out with what I consider a very much subpar product compared to all the hype that they made about it. It could have been a lot better. My feelings are this bike should have been 100 pounds lighter. It should have been 30 horsepower more. It should have been 130 horsepower when it came out. They should have had removable saddlebags, or at least saddlebags that were bigger than what was offered from 1983 up on the K models. K12LT actually had smaller saddlebags, just fucking retarded for a touring bike. Yes, they added a giant top box, but even that is not all that big compared to what was offered elsewhere. Fairing protection was not incredible. The windscreen, they claimed, was optically clear. A work of art. Bullshit. On our test ride during the introduction, it was like being in a fucking circus mirror. They're not optically clear. Far from it. Most people replace these with an aftermarket shield. So anyway, that's it. If you have one of these, enjoy it. They're not a horrible bike. It's just not what a lot of us expected from BMW back in 1999. There's many of these still soldiering on. This one is here for replacement of the clutch due to either a slave cylinder, transmission input seal, or rear crankshaft seal leak. And we will find out shortly exactly what the problem is with this one. So that's it. I hope you got at least a little chuckle out of this, and if you're pissed, sorry. Everyone has a shitty day.
This video
Thanks.
brought
Bye.
a tremendous amount of comments. In support, I might add. I had a few negative comments. Boo-hoo-hoo, I get better mileage than that, and you're picking on BMW and all that sort of thing. Hey, I call them like I see them. The bike was not what it was advertised to be. Not the killer touring bike that it was supposed to be. It had less luggage capacity than the model before it, and the model before that, and the model before that. Smaller storage space is not ideal for a touring bike. Nonetheless, servicing these things was a pain in the butt, and my hat off to Kirk. he enjoys these things, and you know that's great because he's got that passion. I remember when I was just into BMWs, and I would get offended by meeting some of these older BMW guys, especially techs that went K bikes. Ugh, I'm not working on a K bike. We airheads, that's it. Airheads, and we're all done. I'm a K bike guy, early K bike guy. I like the early K bikes. I didn't like the K1200LT. Wasn't what the earlier ones were. Reliability was the key to the K bike. That's why I like the K bikes. They go forever. At least they used to. So this is wrapping up the end of this video here. I want to show you a few pictures from this event in January of 1999. The first picture we're going to see is the Boss and I's motorcycle there, parked next to the trailer at BMW. This was an Ali M trailer. Ali M was the company that would transport BMW demonstrators around the country and put on the show, the big show. And that's it, And while we're at San Antonio, we visit my buddy Rick, of course, and swing by the station, and we have a little chat with one of the motor officers there. They ride Honda Goldwings down there in San Antone at the time. They rode the R1100 RTP and did not like it. They found the bike overheated in heavy traffic, or ran too hot for their liking, and the bike was too high, confined for the operator. Motor Cop was a little bit cramped on the BMW compared to the Goldwing, of course. The Goldwing's nice and low and a very low center of gravity and easy to maneuver in traffic and all of that for a big tuna boat. Everything the K12LT is not. The GL1500 was quite a bit more maneuverable in low speed, heavy traffic than you can get through with a K1200LT. And San Antonio didn't like the R1100 RTP, so there wasn't going to be any dreams of a K1200 LTP or K12 RTP in the future for San Antonio. That wraps this up. I want to thank all of my viewers for watching this video from 2013 up till today. This is one of the most viewed videos I ever put out. Certainly one of the most controversial. I got to get back to some other work. This video is dedicated to Richard Day, who requested this video. Richard is one of my patrons who goes above and beyond the monthly contribution and helps make all of this happen. Richard, I want to thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this rendition of the K1200LT rant, and there will be more. You'll see me again soon, my friends. Take care.